So I want to start each of these videos with an image from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith, because it's one of the most recognizable images of the Major Arcana and the Minor Arcana as well. So this is an image of the Fool from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And you can see the Fool here at the edge of the cliff, looking up into the sky, actually not really looking up because his eyes seem to be closed. He's wearing a robe that is green and red, possibly with flowers, possibly with sunbeams, and it's a very sunny day. He has his little white dog with him, and he has his stick over his shoulder with the traditional bindle, kind of a purse, kind of a bundle that he's carrying. And he's got this beautiful red feather floating off from his head, very carefree, but dressed, in this almost sort of medieval way, as a fool might be, from the courts and so forth, and at that time. And the beginner's mind is definitely part of this. He is beginning a journey. He's carefree. He's going somewhere, but he's not watching where he's going. We see the white mountains in the background, and we see that he's at the edge of a cliff, which he is not noticing. So this has become the basis for so many images of the Fool throughout the 20th century and into the 21st century. So I'm going to be taking a look at those. I don't have a poem for this one, but I did want to show it as probably the most recognizable image of the Fool. The first card that I want to talk about is the Fool card from the Robin Wood Tarot, and you can see how closely it follows the form of the Rider-Waite-Smith. What I love about it, though, is that he really does have jester clothing on, this wonderful red and white checked on one leg and the stripes on the other leg. He still has the little white dog, which is almost exactly the same as the other Fool. He has what looks like a pack on his back, but he's not carrying the stick. Instead, he's playing the flute, which I find absolutely delightful because it's that sort of carefree energy that is part of the Fool. I love the jaunty red feather, the crown of feathers, and also because this youth could be either male or female, so I love that about this Fool card. The mountains are still in the background, and the cliff is there. You can see just the very top of a tree over the top of the cliff, and a river way down at the bottom. So he is there, and he's playing the flute, and he's dancing on tiptoe. So I'm going to read the poem and see what you think. High on tiptoes, one leg red and white diamonds, the other green and yellow stripes. He plays the flute while his white dog dances. The red plume sways over his crown of white roses. A rainbow streams from his backpack. In the distance, white mountains. Here, it's all gentle green hills and this cliff. So I think that that's one of the things about being in that place of the Fool, is you're seeing all the beauty and all the possibility in this beautiful place, but you might miss the fact that there's actually a cliff there. Fool card from the Hanson-Roberts deck, and this is from 1985. This was my go-to deck for so many years. It was a deck I carried around. It's smaller than the usual size tarot cards, and I just loved Mary Hanson-Roberts' gorgeous watercolors. This is another very hopeful, lovely child or youth but dressed very differently. He or she does have the stick over their shoulder, but it's got a purse on it, which I think is really kind of delightful. They're carrying the white rose, of course. We're not seeing the dog, but the mountains are there in the background, and we see that they are at the edge of the cliff. Could she look any more confident with her stick over her shoulder and a white rose in her hand? She travels light. Is that tiny purse hanging from her stick all she thinks she will need? Her loose red shirt is already tattered, the bottom edge frayed and torn. She doesn't care. She wears her blue scarf knotted loosely around her neck. Her face is open to the sky as she strides toward the cliff she doesn't see. If only she had a dog to warn her. This next card is from the Whimsical Tarot, which I think is now out of print, and I'm sorry for that. I will still put the information below, but if you want it, I think you'll have to look on eBay. This is also illustrated by Mary Hanson-Roberts, and again, her gorgeous colors. But this is obviously taken from The Wizard of Oz. We see here the Scarecrow, who has escaped from the field, following a butterfly, has his picnic basket lunch, and the dog is now Toto from The Wizard of Oz. And there's the road, which is not just yellow brick, but kind of yellow and orange brick, going wherever. The crow looking on. It's a very very mild landscape. So there are some mountains in the distance, but it's more of a hilly kind of landscape. But again, he's looking at what it is he's chasing, that gorgeous swallowtail butterfly. And then we see the cliff with, of course, the worst thing that could happen to a scarecrow, which is the flames. And we know from the story that that is the one thing the scarecrow is afraid of. So I do want to read you the poem from this, and it is called The Scarecrow. Maybe it's because he doesn't have a brain that he's wandered off the path. He's free as the crows he's left behind in the cornfield. He wants to dance or leap after that yellow butterfly. The little black dog stands astonished. Below the cliff, a chasm of fire. So here we have, you know, the danger that's involved in this jump, even more so than just a regular cliff. Who knows what you might fall to? But here it's very clear that there's an allurement, but also a fire you may have to go through to get where you're going to go on this journey. Look at something very different now. Something that is not from the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition at all. It's from the Forest of Enchantment Tarot that came out in 2019 from Linotte Weatherstone, illustrated by Jessica Rue. And you can see this gorgeous, gorgeous painting of the white hart. And this is one of those cases where if you don't have some cultural knowledge behind this, you'd go, why did they choose this white deer to be the fool? I mean, how is that a fool? And I can tell you. And the reason I can tell you is I used to be a storyteller, and I used to do specifically Celtic and Arthurian stories. And the beginning of many, many Arthurian stories is something that goes something like this. Arthur and his knights were out hunting, dressed all in green. And just the color green tells you, first of all, that this is an old story that probably goes back to goddess times. And then what happens is a white hart appears, usually at the edge of a misty woods, and here it is. And when that happens, whether it's Arthur or Gawain or whoever sees the white hart, actually then follows it and the adventure starts. So this is from those old stories. So I did a little bit of research into the white hart, and the hart is specifically the male deer of the red deer species that is indigenous or native to the British Isles. So the hart would initially be a red deer. So of course your heart, that is, our hearts are red. And that, of course, shows the passion. But when the white hart appears, of course, it's magical. White animals are rare, and in this case, this would be magical, but also is the color of purity. And so off goes the whoever it is who's going on the quest, Arthur or Gawain or whoever, literally following his heart. So for me, I saw this and it was just like, oh, I couldn't believe that they had come up with this wonderful, if they had even just said the white deer, I wouldn't have connected with it as much, but the white hart is so evocative. And reminds me, takes me right back into those stories. And I know we are going on not just a journey, but a magical journey, a quest of some kind in which we learn something, in which we become something other than we are, or more our true selves. There will be sometimes difficult lessons to learn and difficult things to do. But the promise is that this is coming from the spirit realm, something that is going to enrich you. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I love when these cultural details are brought into the cards, when some artist makes the connection and says, well, we're doing a forest, and what can we use, and knows the stories. This is the importance of bringing your own culture or cultures that well, into your understanding of the cards, because it's another way to open this up to someone. This is a different kind of fool. It doesn't have just to do with the high spirits of youth. It has to do with your heart's deepest and purest desires. And, I guess some people would say, well, all of us have the deepest and purest desire. It is to become enlightened. And I guess that's the bigger picture. But whatever is smaller journey you might be on, this is that beginning place again, and you enter it with purity. You follow your pure heart. This is not a quest you go on because of money or greed or ego or anything like that. In fact, usually, like I said, they're out hunting, doing something very useful and important and very day to day, and all of a sudden the white hart appears, and it doesn't matter. They are going to follow the white hart. The white hart. There is no cliff here, just the misty edge of the woods. When you see him, a deer as white as snow, he calls you with his eyes into the deeper wood, across the sunlit field, along the train tracks, the center lines of highways, through the hidden mazes of suburbia, along the bank of the river, up mountain trails, over glaciers, across the face of the moon. Wherever he leads, you will follow. So I wanted to bring that poem out of just Arthurian times and into the present. So, because it's wherever this white hart goes, wherever that pure desire leads, you will follow. And that includes the sunlit fields along the train tracks, the center lines of highways, even the hidden mazes of suburbia. And then I have some natural images along the bank of the river, up mountain trails, over glaciers, and even across the face of the moon. So you don't know where this is going to take you. But wherever it is, wherever he leads, you will follow. So again, this is a different kind of energy than those first cards, which are that youthful, really know where I'm going, but I'm going to take this step because it's exciting and I'm beginning something. This is kind of more directed. It's coming from a spiritual place, symbolized by the white hart, which is like a spirit animal, that you are suddenly called to do something, to start a journey that you didn't know that you even needed to make. And once you start that journey, you're not going to stop until you complete it. So for me, again, this was just the most delightful surprise when I opened the box. And if you haven't looked at the Forest of Enchantment Tarot, I want to encourage you to do it. The link will be below. It has become one of my favorite decks, and you will be seeing a lot of cards and a lot of poems from this deck. This next deck is another favorite of mine, and I didn't actually expect it to be. It's the first deck that I bought that was a collage deck. It's by Kaballah. Came out in 2004, and all of the images from this deck are taken from Renaissance paintings. So a lot of them had religious significance at first, although when she pulls them out and puts them into these cards, that is often magically turned into something else. This, I think, is such an interesting version of the Fool card. She is still on the cliff, though you can barely see it there. So, and the little dog is there, so she is nodding to the older decks and to Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's entirely different. I love the hat that she has on, the fact that she's carrying a drum, and that she is dressed completely in white. So there is that notion of purity. This, for me, is entirely a maiden, not it does not feel male to me, but which is a nice, sort of refreshing thing from some of the Fool cards that feels obviously male. So I enjoy it for that reason, but there's certainly ways to see this. Gender is fluid, so could be anybody really, but I call it the girl with the drum. She doesn't look foolish, this young girl with the drum, who looms above the abyss we can't see. The gold dog, the same color as the hem of her white dress, is jumping at her knees. Is it her dress that glows, or is she lit from within? The field behind her is a night tapestry edged with ghostly flowers. She wears them on her belt, low on her hips, the buckle a gold sun. Her hat is not tall or pointed enough to be witch or wizard, but she wears it with confidence. Is it music she hears that makes her look up? The white toes of her shoes are too close to the cliff's edge. Will the dog urge her away or topple her? The tassel falls over the top of the drum. She lifts her hand and begins to play. So I love this because there does seem to be almost a moment of hesitation there. She's looking up as if she's heard something. It seems to be nighttime rather than daytime. There's no sun here. Instead, there's this sort of background of flowers that could also be stars, or that are maybe lit by a full moon, as is her dress and the drum itself. Again, is it, where is the lighting coming from? Is she lit from within, or is this from a full moon? We can't see the abyss here, but she is very close to the edge. And the little dog, it's sort of like, is he going to help or is he going to hurt? Not sure. So I love that moment of kind of hesitation. The purity is there in the whiteness of her dress. And then I love that little tassel that falls over the top of the drum. And the fact that she is a musician. So there's that moment before And I actually want to relate that to the Jewish Aleph, which is the number one. I had a rabbi tell me that the Aleph actually is sort of that moment before the word is spoken, that first word in the Torah, which is Bereshit. It starts with a B. It doesn't start with an A. You would think in a tradition that pays so much attention to the letters as having their own power, the first word would start with an Aleph, but no, the Aleph is that intake of breath. It's that moment of hesitation. It's that moment before the musician makes the sound. So for me, I love this fact that this is a woman who's about to play the drum. And for me, in that last moment, the tassel falls and she begins to play. So we know that she does take that step into whatever this journey is going to be. So this, for me, was kind of a magical card when I saw it. It's another one of those, every once in a while, there are just cards that make me gasp because they show me an entire different way of thinking about that card, of envisioning that card. So kudos and many, many thanks to Cat Black for finding this. I think of all the paintings she must have looked through to find what would be a good full image and how this somehow caught her eye as a possibility, and how resonant it continues to be for me 20 years after I originally got the deck. So this was actually one of the first poems that I wrote from the tarot cards in a diner. At breakfast, I pulled this card and went, oh, and just wrote a bunch of notes in my notebook and went home and wrote it. And so here it is for you. I'll be interested in any comments you might have below. Thanks. The next card I want to look at is a relatively new deck. It came out in 2021. It's the Mystical Moments Tarot by Katrin Wedstein. And this very interesting image of the Fool is a woman walking on what appears to be a green road, but which we can see is actually the underbelly of a crocodile. So again, it's like it's emphasizing the dangerousness of the journey. She doesn't have anything with her except a bird. There's no dog. She has a bird. I don't know if the bird is telling her anything. And the very tip of the crocodile's tail has a yellow flower on it, as if to allure her, like, oh, look, this is a pretty flower here. Why don't you take a walk on this road? So there's something very tempting about this card, but also very dangerous. So this is more a card, I think, about naivete than it is just pure beginner's mind. If you think of the difference between this and some of the other cards we've looked at, the naivete, that part is certainly there, but somehow the carefreeness is not there. The danger that we saw in the Scarecrow card with the flames is definitely emphasized here. This is a dangerous road. Is she going to get out of this alive? Are there journeys that we maybe should not take? So that's an interesting thing. I mean, if I got this in a reading, I would be thinking that you're in a place where there seems to be a journey that's going to start, but this is a journey that might have more danger than it's worth taking. So that's, again, a nuance of a card that an artist could show me. It might not be what I want to hear because I might be like totally entranced by this whole idea, and it's beautiful. How can you tell me it's not beautiful? Look at all those flowers and that flower that's right at eye level, and the beautiful colors of green doesn't seem to be leading to danger. And yet here's this crocodile's open mouth below. So that's the card. I'd like to read you the poem, which is just called Walking the Crocodile's Tail. It seemed like a good idea. this peaceful path, this pretty green road with the yellow flower on a graceful stalk just her size. She has brought nothing with her, no purse or bag or sack. The bird on her hand sings but offers no counsel. She follows this green road, flowers all around, sun shining. She is walking on the curled underside of the crocodile's tail. He waits below, his mouth wide in welcome. So a very different take on the Fool. It is a beautiful deck. If you haven't seen this deck, I want to encourage you to take a look at it and consider it, because her visions are amazing, and you will again see many cards from this deck that I've written poems in response to, because they are very unusual. So there's something also about this woman. She's dressed in that sort of Victorian mode. So it's sort of like she's coming from this very prim and proper place. And there's also sort of like visions of the yellow brick road that Dorothy takes, which is supposed to take, to a good place. And of course the eventually brings you to Emerald City. So there's this green, I don't know, that somehow alludes to that for me. And yet this is not a safe road. So I really enjoyed this this take on it, although it is shocking, and I really wouldn't want to get this this card in a reading, because well, for one thing, if I'm in that mode of, oh, I want to do this new journey, that beginner's place, that a place of enthusiasm, the last thing I want to be told is this is probably not a safe journey for you to take. And yet, if I got this in a reading, it really would make me think twice, ask for clarification maybe, but not just like go my merry way and think everything was going to be fine. Again, this seems even a little different than the Scarecrow with the fire below, because we know this spiritual journey, we're going to have to walk through the fire. But I don't really know what you do to escape the jaws of a crocodile unless she's stronger than we think. Maybe she's going to encounter the strength card, and maybe she's not going to wrestle the lion or close the lion's mouth. Maybe she's going to close the crocodile's mouth. I hadn't thought of that, but that's another possible thought about this journey that she's on, that if you meet the crocodile, that's a possibility. This is another newer deck. Well, it's not that new now. It's but from 2019. And this is a deck many of you probably know, the Lightseers Tarot by Chris Ann. And in this, you can see yet another version of the person on the cliff. This time it is a woman in a yellow dress on the edge of a cliff. This has a little bit more sort of new age, maybe even witchy energy to me. She's holding an amethyst crystal in her hand, and you have all this light that is forming this design that's like a petal or a flower in the chasm. So you have the sense that she is about to fall. She's holding onto a branch, but she looks like she's about to fall. And what she's going to fall into, of course, is this very spiritual place, this net that in some ways has been made for her because of the amethyst. So was a very interesting image to me. Again, another switch on the writer Waite Smith, just another slight nuance, another way to see it, which is that you're falling into a spiritual journey here. You're giving yourself. And I think that's important in this beginner's mind, whether it's following the white hart or playing your flute on the edge of a cliff. You are somehow giving yourself to that beginner's mind, to this journey. And in this case, like falling in love, she's going to let herself fall into this net, this spiritual place. So this poem is called The Girl in the Yellow Dress. The girl in the yellow dress holds onto a branch as she leans out over the edge of the cliff. She holds an amethyst in her open palm. Light courses around it, becomes the petals of the blossom that fill the entire canyon. And I suppose I should, yes, courses around it, possibly through it also, I'm not sure. But it's definitely creating something. She is using a tool here, actually, which is interesting because she hasn't, this is before the Magician card, and yet she's holding the amethyst, which is a stone from the earth, so the earth itself. She's holding on to a stick. The canyon is the color of water, even though we have no reason to think that that's necessarily a lake, although it might be. It looks like it might be a far shore over there. And of course, she's leaning into the sky. So all four elements are involved in this picture, which is kind of interesting. So I enjoyed that, and I just found that story in it, and this sense of letting yourself fall, that has such an element of trust to it. We've all known or tried those exercises where you let yourself fall into someone's arms it can be hard to do. You have to have the trust that they will catch you. When I used to see them do that in concerts with people just falling into the pit, I was just like amazed that people would have so much trust in the crowd that they would catch them. The element of fear, the element of danger is kind of left out of this one in a way, because that net is there to catch her as she falls, the same way a fireman's net would be put out if you were in a burning building or whatever. So this is not the crocodile's tail. This is not the even the scarecrow with the fire at the bottom. This is saying, if you let yourself fall into this spiritual journey that you need to take, you will be safe. And I think that, again, is another nuance. Again, depending on the reading that you have, if this is the card that comes up, I would say this is a very positive Fool card. That, yes, if there's a journey you're beginning, it's going to be a safe journey for you. You can do this. You will have helpers. You will be safe, as opposed to the crocodile one, where I'd be like, I'm not sure this is a journey you should go on right now. There may be more risk involved than is worth it. So again, I love this kind of study of tarot where you're looking at the different images and thinking about them comparatively, because of course in every card are all the cards. To me, it's sort of like a sacred jigsaw puzzle. You're putting together all these possibilities of what the Fool could be, and this is one. And I do love the fact that the world is responding to this moment, this beginner's mind, this giving of herself to it by saying, we will catch you. So that seems very special to me about this card. This next card I want to look at is from the Shadowlands Tarot, which is a new deck for me. And I have to say that when I saw it, I just burst out laughing. One of the wonderful things about this deck is that it does have such a sense of humor, but sometimes it's just totally right on the mark. Obviously, this is someone who has traveled before. So the beginner's card, the Fool card, this is not the beginning of, it can be the beginning of, your lifelong journey toward enlightenment or whatever. But it is also the card of any beginnings. Anytime you're beginning a new project or a new phase of your life, you get into that beginner's mind. And if you're at all like me, you can get very enthusiastic. And you can prepare. He's got his I want to say valise because it looks like an old traveling bag. It looks like a traveling bag that's been used many times. He's dressed in a coat that's like an all-weather coat. I feel like, okay, it doesn't matter what the weather is going to be. He's ready. And he's got a scarf. Also, shoes. The shoes are outsize. They could be seen as elf shoes. They could be seen as clown shoes. Or, as I'll say later in my poem, they're almost long enough to be skis. So he is prepared and he is excited. The only problem is he's so excited that he's lost his head. And I think that is such, it's something we say, but to see it graphically illustrated is another thing as well. The black cat is here as his companion, not the little white dog, but the black cat. And the poor cat, she's pointing the way. Here's the way to go. And hopefully he will be able to take her suggestion and put himself back together. So I'd like to read you the poem. It's called Losing Your Head. He's packed his well-traveled bag, put on his all-weather coat, a red scarf, and shoes that could be skis. This is the mountains, after all. He's so excited, but he's ready, except for one thing. He's lost his head. Damn, this always happens. Don't go losing your head again, everyone tells him. But he does, over and over. It's okay, though. His cat is with him. He holds her out, balancing her on one palm. She will be his guide, if he can just see her. So this is one of the I don't want to say this is exactly a shadow card, but this is definitely something that can happen when you get overexcited by the idea of a new project, a new phase of your life, something you're going into, is that you over-prepare, you get so excited that you can't think straight. In other words, you've lost your head. So I adore what has been done with the card, the humor of it. I love that the cat is looking at him with her wide eyes, pointing, but not at all sure that he's going to be able to follow her directions because his head's down in the ground. And his eyes are wide open. He has no nose or mouth. And there's no eyeballs. And so you just feel like it's like this empty-headed place where you can't think straight. And that's really not the same as beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is where you go to that place where you're open to everything, but you haven't gotten yourself so overly excited that you've lost your head completely and you can't think. Because you will need to think, because the first thing you're going to encounter on this journey is a magician, so you better be able to think. The needed humor is there, but it also is a warning for those of us who do get overexcited, who can't think straight because we're so excited, or we've thought about so many possibilities that we can't focus. So it's pretty hard to make a decision that's a good decision. This cat is actually pointing to the cliff saying, whether you like it or not, this is where you have to go. So it's kind of, it's humorous on many levels for me. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I want to look at another newish deck, Everyday Witch, which came out in 2021. This is by Deborah Blair, and the art is by Elizabeth Alba. And this is such a fun deck for anyone who has any witchy inclinations. I absolutely adore it. And this card seems again so hopeful. It's that beginner's mind, but it's also more than that. It's like she's in like a kind of a power stance here with her hands over her head. Um, the, the sea is there again, the cliffs of the earth is there. And there are birds are there as well as the boat. But what I love is that she's got all the right gear on. You know, she's dressed up, she's got her witchy hat, and she's got her broom. Um, and she's ready for this journey. She's ready to jump off this cliff. And again, that's another very, slightly different take on it, which is that she is ready. And she still has this beginner's mind. She's totally confident, but she's also prepared. She's got she's got the right costume. She's got the right tool, which is her broom. And we all know that witches can ride brooms. So it makes total sense to me that that this would be the Fool card. That moment of the first time a witch flies is kind of an amazing moment captured in literature and in the movies. The Ghibli movie of Kiki's Delivery Service is about the beginning of that is about that first flight that she takes as a young witch, and how she develops that. So if you're not a Ghibli fan, I will list that below as one of the things you might want to look at. It's totally delightful, and if you have children, they will also love it. It's animated. Ghibli Studios is kind of a passion of mine. I took my grandsons to see all the Ghibli movies. They're all grown up now and in college, but there's still fond memories there. And this reminds me of that moment when the witch is, going to fly for the first time. And don't we all have that moment when we're going to fly for the first time? Again, a perfect Fool moment. And she's showing her exuberance and her enthusiasm in a different way than, for example, the Fool who was playing the flute. She's got her arms up. I mean, this is a different personality. This is a different personality than the one we just saw with the girl about to fall, about to give herself to that. This is not the white Hart. This is not that following that pure intention so much as it is, this is my next step into power. So I do love that very much. Somehow I believe with her that this is all going to be okay. So here's the poem. It is called She Rides the Broom. She rides the broom like a stick horse, its tail dragging on the ground. She raises her arms to the sky. She can do this. Two eagles soar around the cliff's edge. Below, a sailboat, the sea, the far horizon. Clouds gather behind her, fair weather or foul. One leg rises as she begins the leap. She knows she can fly. So, again, I love that the birds, the eagles are up there kind of modeling for her and being companions to her in this first flight. I wanted to look at these three images of the Fool from different decks, even though I don't have poems for them yet. I think I will have a poem for the central one, which comes from the Sasurabaito. And I have mentioned the World Spirit Tarot in my memoir, in which I say I am the woman dancing drunk on the edge of the roof, and it does refer to this card. But I wanted to look at these three because there are three other wonderful, wonderful images of what the Fool can be. And the Motherpeace image, of course, is by Karen Vogel and Vicki Noble. And this was a deck I got fairly early on. I don't remember if it came out in the late 70s or early 80s, but this was a deck I carried around a lot and was the first round deck I ever encountered. I think it was the first round deck there was. And it was a very feminist deck and a great balance to the decks I had then, which were basically the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Aquarian, and the Morgan Greer. So they were all based on, sort of clones to the RWS. So having a deck that was a feminist deck that was all images of women was really lovely. And you see in this one that spirit of young, innocent, the nakedness, of course, showing the purity and innocence. But you've got the vulture there waiting. Something bad could happen. The sun is there, but it's going down over the mountains. You have the river with the lily, pond lily in it, but also with a crocodile. So there's dangers as well as helpers here. And the amanita mushrooms, which of course are referring to altered states of consciousness. So we know that this is the beginning of a spiritual journey in some ways. So I haven't written about that card, but I did want to show it to you. And if you are a woman and you feel like you need some more decks that are not just diverse decks, but are specifically women's decks, this is a good deck to look for. I think it's still in print. I have the original size, and I also have a mini size because it can be big. One of the things I like about the round cards, when I learned to read tarot, I did read reversals. I sometimes still read reversals and sometimes don't. But the interesting thing with the card, if it's round, is that it can be in any direction. Like the top of the card can end up be anywhere. And so, and I don't remember where I learned this, but it was sort of like if the card was, the top of the card was tilted to the right, I saw it as energy that was moving forward, that was perhaps being, was active, as opposed to like if it's leaning to the left, it might be energy that's being somewhat held back or restrained or like not manifest yet. And of course, a reversal would just be read as reversals are. But if you're looking for other ways to read cards, I know some people feel like everything is contained in the card. You don't need reversals. Everything is contained just in the upright card. The shadow, everything is there. That's true. But if you also work as I do, thinking about synchronicity and sort of the moment is structured this way, then the way the card falls can have meaning to it, and you can assign meaning to that if you do it the same way each time. Sort of like your mind and the cards somehow, whatever bond it is, that however the magic works, it starts giving you readings that are clear based on doing it that way. But what I found is if I change anything in how I'm reading, I have to do it for a while before the cards kind of adjust to, oh, she's doing this now. Some decks I always include reversals, and some decks I don't, and the decks seem to know that. So just as a deck has a personality, I think they also respond to how you're using them. And I don't think this is only with tarot cards. I think it happens with playing cards. It's like a deck seems to know, like, oh, they play hearts with this deck, and all of a sudden the cards that you're dealt are getting more interesting. Same with poker or cribbage or whatever. It's like the deck seems to somehow know what it is you're doing with it. So this is the Fool card from the Sasurabaito Tarot by Stasia Burrington, and the image to the right of it is an image from Hokusai called the Mad Poet. And I just immediately thought of the Mad Poet when I saw this card. I love this this Fool card. This the nakedness being sort of the purity, and the dancing while the cherry blossoms fall feels so auspicious. This is a lovely deck based a lot in Japanese culture. Um, it's a deck that's uneven for me. There are some cards that I feel like I relate to immediately. It has some of my uh, favorite cards, but it also has some cards that I'm not quite sure how they fit. So I need to do a little bit more study with that deck. But I do know that there will be a poem coming about this fool, um, and it feels like it's going to be a haiku, which seems appropriate for this particular deck and this card. And I want to say again, this is one of the ways in which culture, allowing our own culture, the cultures we know well, hopefully not appropriating culture, but, um, you know, allowing the culture to enter the card. And I think that this is a wonderful example of this. Um, just as the heart, the white heart, so much comes out of that British and Celtic stories that you would have to know. So not that you have to know about the Hokusai painting, not at all, but somehow this fool and has the energy of the mad poet. And I love it also because there is this diversity. This is an old man with a beard who's naked, dancing naked with cherry blossoms coming around. Seems like a wonderful idea to me, and I do love that concept of beginner's mind that actually comes from Zen. So that idea of beginner's mind is definitely there, and I feel like this is a really nice depiction of that. Hi, I promised you a haiku for the Sasurabaito Fool, and actually I have one now, so I'm going to read it. Amid falling blossoms, the old man dances naked under the cherry tree. I'm going to read that a second time because I think sometimes small poems need to be heard more than once. Amid falling blossoms, the old man dances naked under the cherry tree. So I wanted to do this as a haiku because it is a Japanese image, and the haiku is, of course, a Japanese form. In the notes below, if you comment, I do know there's an extra syllable in English. We don't necessarily have to do strict 17 syllables, so I am aware of that. And I'm pretty happy with it, so I hope you are too. I wanted to look at that Fool card again. From the World Spirit. This is from the first edition, illustrated by Lauren O'Leary. And this was, I think, probably my first deck where there was some diversity. I was just mesmerized by the woodcuts and the wonderful colors that were used with it and the black borders and background. But this particular card, I related to in a couple of different ways. One is it's so very much out of what feels to me like the Jewish tradition of Fiddler on the Roof. I've included 3 images from Marc Chagall on the right. One is specifically the Fiddler on the Roof. You can see his foot on the roof there. Another is the fiddler sort of floating in the sky on a chair. And the other is just it's a painting of a Jewish shtetl during the late 19th century. So this image of the woman on the roof reminds me so much of the Fiddler on the Roof, except she's the dancer on the roof, and it is a woman and not a man. I love these birds that are coming down again to accompany her somehow, and also the little dog who's warning her. I have a very short poem I'm going to quote from here, and this is actually from Rumi, and it's one of my favorite quotes. Sit down, you are drunk, and this is the edge of the roof. This is a card that I personally love because I feel like this is often the place I'm at, where it's like I have the exuberance, this new something is going to happen. I'm ready to give myself to it. I have total confidence in it. But the truth is there are some dangers, and that's okay. I like that the birds are carrying flowers and branches to her as you would give to someone who was successful. So that's what I have in terms of the Fool for you today, and I hope you enjoyed it. I love having you here, and I look forward to any comments that you might have. I want to say thank you to all the creators of these decks. Thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe. This is a new channel. Tell your friends about it if they haven't had a chance and if you're enjoying it. And hope to see you next time.